It's always awkward when I walk up to a mic and can't quite get it up to my height. We're going to start in a couple minutes, so if you're asking questions or getting any food, you can kind of head back to your seat. That'd be great. And in case I forget to remind you, there are free shirts, as I mentioned, anybody who's coming late. Hats, shirts, decals. You'll notice on the door when you walked in, there's a decal on the door. It says you're a proud business partner, and let's talk with some information. So if you either are a business owner or you work at a place that may be willing to display that, please grab one of those. And then we have stickers. That's it. Free stuff. Pens. We have free pens. So grab stuff on your way out. Thanks. Dwayne, are we good? All right, so tonight, thank you all for coming. We're here, as you know, for an important conversation, an important topic. I'm not going to talk a lot because I want to save my voice. I'm a little raspy, but we all know the history of what opioids and the epidemic have done, not just in our communities, but nationally. We're seeing 115 deaths a day across the country, and locally, we were terrified to think of the fact that we were on pace to seeing a death a week in Crawford County. Fortunately, that didn't come to fruition, but the issue is escalating, and the foundation at the hospital has decided that we're going to play whatever role we can play in making a positive effect on the epidemic. So we've been raising money and we've been getting the word out about opioid addiction, some resources locally. While we are giving away free stuff, it is important to note that John Hartnett is a new position that we've created, a new resource we've created within the hospital. His title is Recovery Service Navigator, and essentially, John is somebody you can call anytime if you've got questions about what any of the treatment facilities do in the back, any services locally, any resources. John will know the answer. If not, he'll find the answer, and you can go to letstalkhelps.com and find out more information there. So we've got calendars for support groups, we've got websites for these different organizations, places to go. Our goal is to get as much information to people as quickly as we can, all in one location, so you don't have to continually call different areas and try and navigate this yourself. John will be able to do that for you in the website. So please stop and ask John any questions you may have on your way out. So tonight we have a great presenter with us, Ms. Alexis Johnson. I was fortunate enough to be in part of a panel discussion about a month ago, I guess, right? A month or two ago, about this issue. It was something that was kind of last minute and we weren't really sure what was going on, but it ended up being an interesting panel the USDA put on in Harrisburg. And a part of that, Alexis was the representative from the addiction side, and her story absolutely blew me away. So I was immediately, as I was leaving there, thinking, we've got to get Alexis here to tell her story. People can hear it and see, both sides of this story. So she's agreed to come. I'm excited to have her here tonight. I'm not going to belabor it. Alexis Johnson.
Hi everybody, how are we doing tonight? Good. My name is Alexis Johnson. I am an addict and an alcoholic. And first off, I just want to say thank you so much to Don for having me here. I drove 5 hours to be here today, so I'm a little tired. I just got in from Florida last night at 9 o'clock last night, so I was packing at 5 o'clock in the morning to be here. I feel like so disheveled and out of place, but I'm going to try and pull it together. I do professional speaking professionally. It's been my dream to do so. So I am absolutely honored to be asked to do this on behalf of this town. It's my first time I've ever been this far north. I'm actually banned from the country of Canada. So I have 3 DUIs on my record, so I'm not allowed in Canada. So this is as close as I'm going to get, so this is kind of cool for me. But I know nothing about Meadville, and I'm actually just learning about it from all of you here tonight. And I didn't realize that fentanyl was more prevalent here than heroin. And by the grace of God, I've never had a problem with fentanyl. I do know a lot of people who have. I have been addicted to alcohol, Xanax, heroin, crack, cocaine, Percocet. I tried weed like 3 times, cocaine, ecstasy. Anything else that you can imagine, I have been addicted to. My story, I'm going to kind of breeze through it because when we were on the panel, Don and I were just talking a little bit, and it was supposed to be a roundtable discussion, and it ended up being, I think, 10 or 11 of us just talking to about 100 people, and it wasn't really a discussion. And I knew a lot of people that just got up and left. It was in front of judges, senators, congressmen, and it was supposed to be to get people's feedback. And I see a lot of you have taken the time to come out. I don't know if it was to hear me speak or to find out more about addiction. So first I want to ask, and you can raise your hand if you want, how many of you are in recovery? Okay, that's awesome. How many of you are here because you want to learn about addiction? Wow. Okay. How many of you are here because you have a loved one that's suffering and needs help? Wow. Okay. All right. That's where I'm going to completely tailor my whole talk to help you, because when people look at me, they don't believe my story. And when I tell my story, I've told it so many times now it almost doesn't even seem real. I just came back from Florida and I shared my story at a rehab, at a detox, where the most sober person was 7 days. And it was amazing to see people with tears in their eyes saying, you know, I want what you have. And I remember being that person. I have 9 years sober from alcohol and almost 3 years clean from crack and heroin. And I'm not gonna say beat heroin because you never really beat drugs or alcohol, but I have come back from a heroin addiction twice, and I'll explain my story to you. I went through childhood. I was a change of life baby. My mom was 42 when she had me. My dad was 50. I'm the youngest by 17 years. I have 5 half-sisters and 4 half-brothers. My father was an alcoholic. I grew up and had most of my major family functions in a bar. He was also a racehorse owner, so I grew up at the track. I grew up around jockeys, and by the time I was 7, I could handicap and clock a horse better than any man on the face of the earth. You know, I grew up around booze, I grew up around jockeys and horses, and I learned how to manipulate men at a very young age, and that's what I was good at. I didn't really have any friends, and my dad was always at the bar, but he was one hell of a father, and he's still my best friend. He's currently 86 and dying of blood cancer. He has MDS right now, but he's doing leukemia, or he's doing chemotherapy, and he's doing okay, so thank God for that. But growing up, my mom became the disciplinarian, and I hated her. We have a very volatile relationship because she took over from where my dad spoiled me. And I grew up with a sense of entitlement. So that's where things got really rocky, and I became a perfectionist. I don't know if any of you guys can relate. How many of you are perfectionists? Like, everything's got to be, her hand's like, yo. I'm going to play a thing for you. How do I turn that on? I have a slideshow that's going to play, and it's going to show you a little bit of my journey growing up. I went from pageant girl from being 4 years old to a championship cross-country runner, equestrian, to graduating top 5 in my high school class. I had full scholarships to every college. The insanity of me growing up is that my parents were married for 2 months, and on Christmas morning one year, they got back together until I was 9, and on Christmas morning I woke up to my mother beating my father over the head with a lamp because my father was drunk, and my mom and I moved out a week later, and I hated my mom for taking me away from my father. So I would always call my father every night to try and say goodnight because we had moved out, and my father would never answer because he was at the bar drinking. But because my parents were older, in my mind, I would always think Dad was dead or something had happened. I would make my mom get in the car and drive to Dad's house. When Dad's car wasn't there, I knew he was at the bar. So this made me become an overachiever and a perfectionist, and I had to excel in everything that I do. Otherwise, I told myself I was a failure. So I got straight A's in school. I became a championship cross-country runner. I would not go on a date with guys. I was the best horseback rider in the world. If I got anything less than an A, I would lock myself in my room and cry. I had to be skinny. It was a total nightmare for me growing up. Now, when I was a little girl, and I'm going to explain these pictures as they go on because they take you through the nightmare of my addiction as well. When I was a little girl, I had very light hair coloring and very light, fair skin. So kids would make fun of me, and they would call me albino. And it really did a number on me growing up in school. So I became an introvert, and I didn't really have any friends. And high school became an absolute nightmare for me, being made fun of all the time. I just wanted the pain to stop. I didn't fit in. I was bullied. I hated my life. So I excelled even more. I graduated top 5 in my high school class. I just wanted to get away and go to college. I was one of the best horseback riders on the East Coast, championship horses. Had anything you could imagine I had. My father bought me brand new cars for my high school graduation. He took me to Las Vegas on my 16th birthday, because that's where you take a 16-year-old is to Vegas. You know, like that's a normal family vacation. So I decided to go to Penn State, and that's where my life slowly started to go downhill. I went to, because of when my birthday fell, I started college at 17. I had my first drink, I joined Alpha Delta Pi sorority, and 3 months later I had my first DUI. The first drink I had was at Penn State. The first drug I tried was ecstasy. The second drug I tried was cocaine. I didn't even touch weed. It was too not tough for me. And the drugs and the alcohol I tried because I get a lot of parents that say, why? Why? You had everything going on. Why did you do these drugs? And the honest answer is I was dying to fit in. I wanted people to accept me. I wanted to be liked. I wanted to have friends. I just wanted to fit in. Nobody takes their first drink or drug thinking they're going to end up a 50-bag-a-day heroin junkie. And that's where everything ended up taking me. So I did the drugs and the drinking all through college. I still maintained an A average. My junior year, I put the drugs down. My senior year, I did a study abroad program in London. I traveled over to Europe, spent 6.5 months in London, loved it, traveled all over, went to Dublin for St. Patrick's Day, the Vatican for Easter. It was fantastic. Graduated, came back, wanted to go to law school. I took my LSATs, studied my butt off for it. I just couldn't understand symbolic logic. So I went back into the restaurant business, and there was a bar back home, bar restaurant, it was Damon's, and I started working there, thinking, you know, I'll just do this for the time being. And what I didn't know is that the kitchen manager was one of the biggest cocaine dealers in the Scranton area. So my cocaine habit picked back up again. And the next year, in 2006, I was drinking, and I got pulled over for a second DUI. I was driving my friend's Dodge Durango, and I got pulled over on a technicality, and my lawyer and I fought it, and they basically treated it as my first DUI. So I got a slap on the wrist, I got ARD for the second time. They didn't test me for drugs, so I kind of got away with it. Started dating this guy who was exactly like me. We were drinking heavily, because when you're in that realm of thinking, you never, pick people that are normal. You want people just like you, very toxic. And I got pregnant. And I'm not proud to say, but it is part of my story. At this time, I was doing a lot of cocaine and drinking very heavily, and we decided to have an abortion. And in April of 2007, I did have an abortion. And it's been something that I've had to pray very heavily to God. I am a Christian today, and I've had to go ask for his forgiveness, and it's not something I've completely come to terms with yet. I'll get more to that in the end of my story too, because I have had to have a hysterectomy in 2014 at the age of 32. So the ability to have children is not in my story. So it's kind of a paradox. You know, it's difficult. Go back to that gentleman and I broke up, and I met another guy at the bar, a different bar that I was working at. And this guy and I were completely toxic. He was a very heavy drinker, and we started dabbling in pills together. In 2008, I was coming back from a vacation, and I was rushing to get home from work, and I hydroplaned in my car. I got catapulted backwards, and I hit a guardrail going 60 and got pushed out into a lane in the middle of traffic. It was a really bad car accident. Totaled my car, $10,000 worth of damage. Was pretty banged up, and then 2 weeks after that, my sister died of cancer. And the doctors put me on Percocet and Xanax, and that's where my painkiller addiction started. It wasn't something where I just went and started using heroin. The doctors put me on medicine, and I thought it was okay. This is the God's honest part of my story. I did not know about opiate addiction in 2008. I was not an opiate user. I was an upper. I was a drinker. I started getting sick. I started feeling funny when I didn't have the opiates. I didn't understand it. I didn't know about it. Brian didn't know about it. Like I said, we were partiers. I just know that I started getting this horrible feeling when I didn't have the Percocet. But I knew if I took more, I felt better. I didn't get the shakes, and I didn't get that flu-like symptom, and I didn't feel nauseous, and I didn't get the sweats. I started taking more, and I started taking more, and I know the feeling started going away, and I know when you combined it with Xanax, you felt really good, and I'm an addict, and I like that feeling. Eventually, the Percocet stopped working, and I graduated to Oxys. Eventually, the Oxys stopped working, and they were really expensive. You know, and this is just how my story went, but I was still functioning. Back home, I tried to do as much as research here in Meadville as I could, but it seems like you guys have more, again, of a fentanyl problem, and I don't know too much about fentanyl. But I know back home, the Oxys were $60 a pill, and then the government changed the makeup of OxyContin. They made it so you couldn't snort it, and that's what we like to do. So all of us, including my friends, switched to heroin. But I was never going to be that girl that was going to shoot heroin. You know, that's a scumbag move. I was just going to snort it. I was bartending one day, and actually, let me back up. 2009, my ex and I, because this is a big part of my story, 2009, my ex and I had started drinking at 11 o'clock in the morning. We were down Mohegan Sun Casino. I don't know if y'all have heard of it. It's in Wilkes-Barre. It's right next to a major highway. We had started drinking at 11 o'clock, and on top of everything else, I ended up being a compulsive gambler. Don't ask me how. You know, my mom plays poker. I grew up at the racetrack, you know. I ended up being a gambler. I have the black card because I've lost like thousands at Mohegan Sun. They give me free drinks. So I'm down there with my black card, and we're drinking. Next thing I know, it's 2:30 in the morning, and this bright one decides she's going to drive home. So go to get on the highway, and the turnpike is right before you get on 81. And this is God's way of working in my life, and I truly believe this, because everything that happened in my life has led me here. So I go to get on 81, and I get on the turnpike, and I hit the toll booth. But it's 2:30 in the morning, so there's nobody there. So me being slick, I turn around, and I'm like, I'm just going to mosey on back home. Nobody's going to see the whole front end of my car's gone. But I'm fighting with my ex at the time, and he rips off my rearview mirror and hits me with it. So I'm like, I should probably pull over, like this is getting kind of bad. So I pull over, but I don't have my four-ways on. It's in the middle of the night on the turnpike. State trooper pulls up. I'm hammered. He's hammered. He gives me a breathalyzer. I'm a .289, which is 3.5 times the legal limit. Thank God, because I know if I got on 81 doing 70 miles an hour, I would have killed somebody or killed myself. I know that. It was a godsend. Get arrested. It's my third DUI. I'm 3.5 times the legal limit. He gets a public drunken violation. I go home that night. My poor father has to drive all the way down to Wilkes-Barre to pick me up from the hospital. And I tried slitting my wrist that night because I think I'm going to jail. I tried to kill myself. We hire a lawyer. The lawyer tells me to wear the scram bracelet for 10 months. Now that's the last time I drank, was July 3rd of 2009. I decided alcohol and I didn't get along, and it's been since then. So I wore the scram bracelet for 10 months, and I was doing meetings. I was doing everything my lawyer told me to do. But scram house arrest, this is not house arrest, they're two separate divisions. Scram house arrest did not test for drugs because I never got arrested for a drug DUI. So now my pill habit takes off because I realized I could do pills and not drink. So now I'm doing tons of pills. The pills are going to heroin. Everything is just taking off. So my sentencing is March 10th of 2010. The judge gives me 90 days house arrest, tons of community service, 5 years mandatory probation because it's my third DUI. I don't go to jail, but don't worry, I'm going to find a way to put myself there. I ended up there 7 times after this. And mind you, I'm still on probation 8 years later. So I don't go to jail, but the guy I was with, his mother calls down probation and says, my son and his girlfriend are using, and turns me in. She calls me in, and I light up the cup like a Christmas tree. Like I'm on everything, rightfully so. She puts me in for 5 days. I get out, I go right back to doing what I'm doing. So now we're using heroin, we're shooting, we're snorting. And I remember the first time shooting heroin. I don't know if anybody in here has ever done it, but it's everything that they say it is. And if you have a loved one or a family member that is shooting meth or shooting cocaine or shooting heroin, and you want to come talk to me about it, I will gladly talk to you about it. My family cannot understand it. My father thinks it's about willpower, that you could just put it down. He quit drinking because of the medication he's on with the cancer, so he thinks you could just put it down. What I can tell you is that if you're a parent and you do have a loved one in addiction, there is nothing you could have done to stop that person from using. My parents were amazing parents. They could not have done anything to change the path that I was going to be on, and I tell them that all the time. My father never missed a Tuesday visit when I was in prison. Not once did he miss it. 84, 85, down there, arthritis, every Tuesday. He was the first one in line to visit me in prison, and he used to say, what could I have done differently? And I kept telling him, Dad, you couldn't have done anything differently. This was my path to lead. And I know why. I had to go there to get here. And I'm okay with that today, I've had 7 major overdoses. I've died twice. I've buried 16 friends. I just lost my ex-fiance. That gentleman that I told you about that we used together for the first time just died 2 months ago of a heroin overdose. My sponsee just died last July of a heroin overdose. My best friend just died in 2011 of a heroin overdose. She broke into somebody's house to rob them, and she couldn't wait to leave, and she used, and she died on their floor. She didn't even know the people. She died all alone. I was in prison when she passed away. My father found me dead on the floor on December 3rd of 2010. It was my first of 7 overdoses. He just woke up in the middle of the night for no reason to check on me, and I wasn't in my room. And he walked downstairs, and I was in the basement by the washing machine. The needle was still in my arm, and I was gone. I was foaming at the mouth. My eyes were rolled back in my head. I had no pulse. That was the first time they had to bring me back with Narcan. I spent 5 days in ICU, and probation let me right out in handcuffs. They had to watch me for seizures because I was using cocaine and Xanax at the time too. I went to treatment for 27 days, which is great for about 2% of the population. I do not believe 27 days works for anybody. I think long-term treatment is what's needed. That's my opinion. I believe 90 days or more with the drugs and what's being used out there right now. 27 days is long enough to dry somebody out and get them right back out and overdose again. I've had it happen a couple of times. I was in there for the 27 days. I got out. I found an old bottle of Percocet in my room. There were 20 pills in there. I opened up the bottle. I swallowed 18. I had my second overdose. My dad found me again on the kitchen floor. Because an addict's mentality, And I'm here to be brutally honest with any of you if you're dealing with people in addiction. They want to make up for time lost. You know, if they're not done yet and they have reservations, they're gonna wanna make up for that time that they lost. You know, my mom said the same thing. She quit smoking. When she picked up that cigarette again, she couldn't put him down fast enough because she had to make up for the 8 years she stopped smoking. She was like, I just kept chain smoking, Lex. She's like, I couldn't get enough. It's the same with an addict's mentality. We can't get enough. You know, and in a certain organization we belong to, they say one is never enough, or 1,000's too many and one is never enough. You know, that's why we just never take the first one. After that, house arrest came and arrested me. I went to jail for 6 weeks. 2 of my friends died back-to-back of heroin overdoses, and my brother died of lung cancer in that 6 weeks. I was not furloughed out to say goodbye, and rightfully so. I had no business being out of jail to say goodbye because I probably would have ended up doing something stupid. So I stayed there for 6 weeks. I got out, and treatment court, I really hope you get treatment court here. I will do anything I can to help you get it. It is a huge program for anybody. We have 7 treatment courts in my county. Veterans court, dual diagnosis, drug court, alcohol. It's phenomenal. It's saved my life. Do you have a color system here for probation? Where they have to call in and get immediately drug tested? No. I was on colors for 4 years. These are programs that, resources like I Can Help, they keep people accountable. I had to get up at 5 o'clock every day for 4 years and call in. I wasn't ready, but I can't tell you how many people were successful. My color was blue. I hate the color blue, but it works. They had to call, you have 2 hours to show up, and you had to give a drug test, and you had to give an alcohol screening. If you didn't, you went to jail for 48 hours. It was just a little wake-up call. These are programs that are meant to keep you accountable. So I did the color system. I was on treatment court. Now I'm going back to 2011. They allowed me to be on doctor-prescribed Xanax, which now there was no need for me to be on Xanax. But I manipulated my poor judge into thinking I needed Xanax. I don't take Tylenol now. Like I don't need anything. So I was manipulating with that. Towards the end of the year, I needed 3 mouth surgeries, and they allowed me to be on painkillers. Well, it's very expensive to test levels, but as long as I was showing up for oxycodone, I was allowed to get through the drug tests. I was not a good person. I wasn't. I was doctor shopping. I was working 3 doctors. I was manipulating. I was showing up with urine taped to my legs at doctors to get doctors to write me scripts of my dad's urine, to have clean urine. I was getting 600 pills a month. Like, these were things, I was throwing myself, from January until April of 2011, I threw myself down my dad's steps 17 times. I took a butter knife to my back and ripped my back open to go to the hospital and get Dilaudid shots. So I had a problem with my insurance. They kicked me off my insurance. My father stopped calling 911 for me to get an ambulance. I have scars on my back. You're seeing a thing run through on here of blood on my face. I took an X-Acto knife to my face when I was high and ripped my face to shreds with the knife, just so I can go and get painkiller shots at the hospital. I was on a 4-day, the middle picture, I was on a 4-day crack and heroin binge. I still have scars all throughout my face. So that leads me to April of 2012, and this was the day that I overdosed twice in 4 hours. I met my one dealer in the morning, and she gave me 60 pills, and then I went and bought needles. I was going to go back to shooting heroin that night. I'm working at Olive Garden. Now, nobody knows. I'm training to be a manager at Olive Garden. I'm functioning. Nobody knows at this point. I decided it'd be a good idea to snort 120 milligrams of Percocet and go into work on Good Friday, because this is where my head's at. I overdosed in my car at noon on Good Friday. I wake up to a police officer jimmying in my car, an ambulance, a fire truck, probation, my mother, all of Olive Garden's management, and everybody standing outside at Olive Garden. Like, it's a full-blown spectacle. I wake up like, what are you doing? I gotta go to work. Like, get out of my car window, I have to go to work. The officer's like, you just overdosed. If my car was running, it would have been my 4th DUI. He found the needles in my purse and charged me with possession. So he handcuffs me. And this is where the story gets really, I had to be told the story. He handcuffs me in front. Because it's an overdose, they have to take me to Mid-Valley Hospital. So they take me to Mid-Valley, they check me out. I know I'm going to jail because I'm on probation. He just charged me with paraphernalia. They find the pill bottle, they give it to my mom. I don't know why they didn't take it to evidence, but they give it to my mom. She puts it in her purse. So they're like, okay, we're gonna take you down to booking. You can hug your mom goodbye. I hug her goodbye. I feel the pills in her purse. Grab the pills and I cup them and I put them down my pants. I'm in the back of a cop car. I know I'm going to jail. I'm gonna go back as high as I can. I'm in the back of a cop car. I open the pills, I down them, I flatline and die in the back of a cop car. This is my 2nd overdose in 4 hours. They code blue me down to a 2nd hospital now. So now I'm in CMC. They couldn't wake me up. They had to bring me back with shots of Narcan to my jugular. So now I'm in CMC. I have no idea what happened. I was in one hospital, now I'm in another. They kept me overnight. Now it's Holy Saturday. Now I remember waking up for a brief second, and then I remember waking up in Lackawanna County Prison. Like, I don't even remember going through booking. I just remember waking up in prison. And I remember looking in the mirror and just seeing a monster. Like, I don't remember my reflection. I don't remember anything. I was there for 7 weeks before I went in front of my judge, and he was like, Lex, I don't know what I'm gonna do with you, but you're gonna die, and I'm not having your death on my hands. I'm sending you to state prison. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to state prison. So he did, he sent me to state prison. I went to Muncie State Penitentiary for a mental health evaluation. So I ended up going to state prison with no felonies for being a drug addict. The girl I got sent up with was doing 5 to 10 for beating her pizza delivery guy with a pitchfork within an inch of his life for $20. I was like, oh my God, like how I need treatment. He wanted to scare the ever-living out of me. That was his intention because nothing else was working. Muncie, you get locked in for 23 hours a day if you're in classification, and that's what it was. I was locked in for 23 hours a day, just staring at walls. You know, you can't use the phone for the first 3 weeks that you go through medical. I couldn't contact home. My parents were older. You can't receive mail. You just sit and sit and sit and stare and sit. And that's what I did for 60 days, 57. So they brought me back on 57 days, and I went in front of him 3 weeks later, and he said, are you done now? And I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, I want to go home. He sent me home on September 3rd of 2012, and I put together 2.5 years. Sobriety was my life. I got a job working for Gibbons Ford. I was a car salesman. My dad and I bought a racehorse. Like, I got my life together. I became a sponsor. My life was good. My life was really good. And then in September of 2014, I was having some female problems. Because of the history of cancer in my family, my OBGYN said, I think it's time that we have a hysterectomy, or you're gonna have some problems in your life. I was like, all right. So I had a hysterectomy at 32. And my doctor knew I was in recovery, but when I was on the bed, they were wheeling me back to anesthesia. And right before I went back, she's like, we're gonna send you home with some Percocet for the pain, sweetie. I was like, okay. And then they put me out. And that's all I remember. So I woke up and I was sitting there with my mom, and I remember I had the bottle in my hand, and I was like, should I take one? And it was like this epic battle in my head. Because I was in pain, but I wasn't in pain, and it was pain I could have handled. Because they already shot me up with a painkiller on the table, so I felt like I was gonna be okay, but she's like, if you need it, take it. Well, I'm an addict, of course I'm gonna take it. It took me 2.5 weeks to finish that bottle of 20 pills. I respected it, I was afraid of it. I had a sponsor, everybody was on alert. You know, I couldn't work for 2 months, I couldn't lift anything heavier than 5 pounds for 2 months. After that was over, I felt like such a worthless scumbag. I didn't feel like a woman. I felt like everything was robbed from me. I felt like the biggest piece of crap in the world. I played that victim mentality all the way up here. Like, instead of reaching out and asking for help, I played it. I played victim. I wasn't accountable for anything. I didn't ask for help. I knew what I had to do and I didn't do it. So I sat in it and sat in it and sat in it and obsessed and obsessed and obsessed. And I remember in December, I was at Planet Fitness and I was on a treadmill and I was getting ready to walk out and go to the Queen City meeting at 7 o'clock and tell on myself. And I had my crack dealer's phone number dialed in my hand and I had a choice. I was going one way or the other. I remember I was walking on the treadmill and I said, I'm either going to the meeting or I'm calling my crack dealer. And I walked out of Planet Fitness and I called my crack dealer. That led me on a 7-month relapse. From December until July, I went through $60,000. I was shooting 50 bags of heroin a day. I was smoking an 8-ball of crack a day. I overdosed 3 more times. They were finding me in parking lots. I had a crack seizure in Sheets. It got really bad. I blew out both of my veins. If you look at my forearms, all my forearms are scarred. I hit a nerve in my one vein. I didn't think I was going to have feeling in my arms again. My father at the time was going through heart surgeries, so the guy I was with at the time, we were running off to New York. I became a disgusting, pathetic excuse for a human being. I didn't think I was going to live. And my mentality was I knew I was on probation. I would rather die than go back to jail. And I was trying so hard to put myself in a grave. Because I knew if I asked for help, I'd have to go to jail first. That's how my program rolled. I couldn't just go into treatment because I was on probation. My first stop was jail. Now I'm trying to work in my county to have that not happen. I'm trying to find a way for addicts to go to treatment first because you have to be accountable, and I understand that, but I'm trying to find a different way to get around that. I detoxed in prison with the light on you for 24 hours a day on a cold metal bed with dirty underwear for a pillow. Like, it's not supposed to be a sob story, but it's not a way to get sober either. There's really no sober resources in prison. But that's my story, and that keeps it fresh for me because I don't want to go back there. There was an incident, my mom has asked me not to share about it, that happened in July that brought me to a place darker than hell with another person that I probably will never share about it, but I still have to go through a lot of PTSD counseling for it. And they say the bottom gets lower every time, and thank God that person's all right. Thank God I'm all right. But I know how bad it can get. I know it can get worse. I am lucky I did not come down with HIV or hepatitis C. I'm lucky my parents get to see me sober. Today you see pictures going through. I am a sponsor of 2 women throughout the country. I have a sponsor. I am a professional speaker today on addiction. I have literally devoted my life to this. I quit my job back in February. I just went back to it because they asked me to, but I had a 6-figure-a-year job. I literally just quit to devote my life to addiction awareness. I got back from Florida yesterday. For 2 years, I've had treatment centers all over the country begging me to come take a look, and I didn't want to be involved with any treatment center per se because there's a lot of ones out there that aren't on the up and up. I finally got in touch with one down in Florida that is probably the most amazing place I've ever seen. They have the best doctors. I got back yesterday. They're a dual diagnosis, amazing facility. I now have resources from all 50 states with everything from mental health to anything, insurance, no insurance. I'm going to get my recovery certification as a recovery coach. Do I know the answer? No, I don't. I've started working with youth, with teens, because I think prevention now is the key. I think maybe this problem has gotten completely out of control, but it doesn't mean we stop trying. You know, I have no problem letting my name be attached to anything. I think stigma is the worst thing that's out there. You know, I think the more we talk about it, the better it's going to get. My phone is on 24/7. I will drive, fly, go anywhere I can if I have to even pick somebody up and bring them back. I've always wanted to be a model. I do that today. I'm a daughter, I'm a friend, I'm a sister, you know, I'm a girlfriend. I'm not that person anymore, but it doesn't mean that I can't go back there, and I have to remember that. It is one day at a time. I have mothers that reach out to me, fathers, you know, please get my kid help, please get my kid sober, and the only thing that I can say is that they have to want it, but again, we can always plant seeds. You know, I had to suffer tremendously before I changed. I had to be ready. You know, but things like this, talking about this, having people come in that has been through it and answer questions, I think is the biggest resource we have. Because a lot of people can't understand. My dad's 86 and he still thinks it's willpower. Like, no, but he's 86 and I'm gonna let him rock with that. Like, yeah, it's willpower, Dad. We beat it, you know. It gives him peace. But I don't wanna just talk, like, I see a lot of you are here to learn, and I just wanna ask before I end, do you guys have any questions for me? Because my life's an open book, I hold nothing back. I will gladly answer anything.
I have just one thing to add. First, thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was amazing, impressive. I wish I could tape that and broadcast that to everybody in this community. So,
Thank
well
you.
done with that. I just wanted to ask, I don't want to take up a lot of time, so I basically wanted to ask if I could reach, if your contact info is out there.
Mhm.
You mentioned the drug court situation. There's some local individuals that are pushing for that and meeting with people in government and trying to get that as part of our community, because it's not, and it sounds like you're an advocate of that.
Yes.
So maybe you can shed some positive light on it for the people, you know, around here. I think it's a great idea.
I have my business cards up there. Please take them. I have tons of people that I can help get you in contact with from multiple counties that have had successful, Luzerne County, Lackawanna County, and then Susquehanna County. I know judges and probation officers from all three that could be advocates for you to get a treatment court in here.
Yeah, I don't know enough about it, so someone like you, I think, would be, you know, a huge help to the people doing it, because the system now seems to be where people are questioning its flaws. I mean, I have a close family member went through it. She's a year sober from heroin, and she, you know, 8 years of fighting that, went through our court systems, and it didn't seem to, you know, be the right path. So I'm dedicating whatever I can do to try to, you know, help what we have here locally. So I
That's
appreciate
awesome.
it if you can help too.
Absolutely. Thank
you.
you. Yeah. I had a lot of money from Ford when I was working at Ford. I was blessed to have good credit, so I maxed out all my credit cards, and I took out about 25 grand in personal loans that I'm still paying back. I'm currently about 110 grand in debt right now that I'm paying back. Yeah, it's not easy, but accountability.
You had talked about a cranberry split or something? I didn't understand what you were talking about.
What's that?
Scram. Oh, the bracelet.
Oh, the Scram bracelet.
Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah, so that's an alcohol monitoring bracelet. What it is it's like a house arrest bracelet, but it only monitors alcohol. So you can't wear perfume. If you drink it out, like it monitors that.
So it's sensitive.
Correct. Any type of hand wash, hand soap, it literally goes off the chart. It's only used for alcohol. You literally have to watch anything you put on your body or ingest. You're welcome.
Hi, Alexis.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
My name is Tara. I'm in recovery as well. And we've all heard the bad stories and the horrible epidemic that we're going through. But I always think it's nice and enlightening if we can share the tools that we use to stay sober and kind of the things that, instead of the things that brought you down, what in sobriety gives you life and helps you live a sober life every day.
Sure. So I belong to NA and AA. I do work a 12-step program. I have a sponsor. That person is fantastic. I do sponsor 2 women throughout the country. I do take women through the book. Unfortunately, they're not where I live, so we have to do messages. We do FaceTime. So with my schedule, I currently work 50 hours a week, and with the traveling and whatnot, I do a lot of speaking as well. I found that I'm also bipolar, so I do suffer a lot of ups and downs, and I found that when I get down, getting out of myself and helping other people has been huge for me. I do a lot of volunteer work. I do have an emotional support animal who helps me tremendously. I think it's great to volunteer at other places. There is a lot of recovery groups online that I do belong to. There's meetings online. I do travel a lot, like I said, so there's a lot of AA meetings online. I was just talking to a gentleman before about listening to suggestions. One thing I did not do before was ask for help. I thought I knew everything. It always had to be about me, and I didn't want to hear what anybody else had to say. So getting involved with DATS programs has been like fantastic in the beginning. Drug and alcohol treatment serves a purpose, and I believe that it is incredible. I did 180 meetings in 180 days. I didn't miss a meeting for 6 months. I did AA and NA, but I don't know if you have both here, but AA is much stronger where I come from. So I tended to stick more with AA, but when I really needed to talk about my heroin problem, I went to NA. I went through the Salvation Army program this last time around. I did not have insurance. So my lawyer and my probation officer, because of the severity of my heroin habit, they were at the point where they wanted to max me out, and I was facing 6 years. I had another incident too that I talked about where I could have been facing a long time, like 20 years. So with that being said, there was, if everything had went through, my story could have been a lot different. With that being said, I ended up doing 14 months in jail and rehab. And I went to the Salvation Army, which is a Christian rehab program. They have programs there. Now, not everybody believes in God, and that's fine. I'm Christian. I believe that God is my higher power. And they teach you, that there was like 60 and 65-year-old men and women that didn't know how to write a check, didn't know how to apply for a job. There's programs out there that teach people life skills. And they teach you, that program is for people that did not have insurance at all. It's a work therapy program, but it's also for recovery. So they teach you, you go to work during the day 5 days a week, and then at night you would take recovery classes, life skill programs, and then you get certain time out. You go through phases. So it's like a rehab, but it's an extended program. It's 6.5 months. And then I chose to stay another 6 months, so I did a full year there. And they're all throughout the country. And whatever they suggested to do, I did. If they told me to stand on my head for 20 minutes, I stood on my head because I wanted to be sober. I had 2 sponsors through there, and I did the volunteer work that they said. And today, when my sponsor tells me to go and do something, I do it. I don't question that person. And like I said, I do a lot of volunteer work. And what I do for me is I've learned to slow down. I'm not a perfectionist anymore. That's been my biggest detriment. I've wanted everything yesterday. I wanted 28 years yesterday, and I wanted all the gifts, everything that sobriety brings yesterday. And today I've learned to enjoy the journey, because that's what sobriety is. It's a journey. It's not a race. And I've learned to enjoy the gifts of it. My father is very sick right now, and it's been nice to be able to slow down and enjoy the time that I have left with him, because I don't know how many more days I have. And gratitude is huge for me. Every morning I get up, I say 3 things I'm grateful for, I make a gratitude list. My sponsees have to message me 3 different things every morning that they're grateful for. It has to be different. It can't be the same things, and it makes them think, it makes me think, it keeps things green for me too. Gratitude is huge, keeps everything fresh.
Alexis, I'm Dave Crow, and we met before the meeting, and we had a nice, and I worked for drug and alcohol. And so the opiate issue is as we know, has continued to grow. And hopefully at some point it will crest and we'll be able to get a handle on this. But I don't know that as an absolute fact, because when you listen to stories like this, you become more aware of the very personal nature of this addiction. And it's just not something that we hear about from people like me speaking someplace or somebody who's working for me. It's a real deadly disease. So I appreciate your candor, your willingness to come over here and speak about that. But Scranton is a long ways away from Harrisburg. Mechanicsburg, I guess, where you live now. I want to thank Don and his group for putting this together tonight and having you here. But moreover, I want to mention, and I think that you said this, that the stories are very, very important, and they really do tie together the community. Having somebody come from the outside and give us their story, it just sends a powerful message that can resonate locally for people who don't think that they have anything to say, have a lot to say.
Mm-hmm.
This is a community event. These are things that are affecting countless people, many who are not here tonight, who unfortunately will continue to suffer without some of the help that they may be able to get. I appreciate the fact that you're trying to plant seeds wherever you go. I have a personal investment in recovery myself, and I know that all started because somebody else planted a seed with me, as if I would hope to do with others. So thank you for being here. I don't really have a question, but I do appreciate your candor.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
My name is Carol Panic, and as a family member of somebody who's addicted, I think we feel helpless a lot of times. We don't know how to help, what to do. We're afraid to maybe say things or ask questions. And I guess I would just say, do you have any insight into the best way to be, to be helpful and to be, I know it's very late, but it's like, is it better? I mean, I know we don't want to enable them, we don't want to do that, but, we want to encourage them, and it's a hard thing for us to know how to handle it.
I know exactly what you're saying. My father was my biggest enabler. There was one time I was so sick and he didn't know what to do with me, and I'm literally throwing up in the bathroom, shaking, crying. I'll never forget this. I asked him to go take me to buy heroin, and he did. And that was the first time I've seen my dad cry, because he didn't know what to do with me. I wish he called the cops on me so many times. I wish he turned me in. But he said, as your father and you being my little girl, it's so hard for me to pick up that phone and call and turn you in and watch them take you to prison. But every time I was in prison, he said he could sleep because he knew I was safe. When I relapsed from the hysterectomy, I was showing up to meetings like with sweatshirts on. I'm 144 pounds now. I was 115 pounds. My face was scabbed up. I was showing up to meetings saying, hi, I'm Alexis, I'm so-and-so sober. And not one person asked me if I was okay. When I was in prison, I had 2 people come to visit me saying, well, we knew something was wrong, but we didn't want to hurt your feelings. I'm telling you, as a person, do not be afraid to call that person out. I promise you, if you have a family member who's using with the stuff that's on the street right now, I would rather see somebody get perturbed at you and hold a resentment in jail than you going to their funeral. I've buried 16 friends to either heroin or suicide, and it's not getting any better. I was just talking with somebody, the drugs that are coming in now are all fentanyl, and I don't know what this person's using, if it's pills, if they're shooting or something. But that one last time is gonna not be one last time. And there's always gonna be, I wish. There were so many times my dad walked in my room and had to put his fingers under my nose to see if I was still breathing. It's better to have somebody be mad at you for months than not have that chance to wake up again. If you have a chance to turn that person in, or I don't know if they're on probation, I'm people can say I'm not a good person. I'd rather see that person alive. You know, I'd rather see that person have a chance to get help. Have you tried talking to them?
Oh, yeah, general terms, not real specific. No, I'm not a parent, family member.
It's tough because sometimes people can get very, like, I don't have a, like, that was me. I'm like, I don't have a problem, you know, like, I'm not a drug addict because I had just shot heroin and walked downstairs. It's a slippery slope. You know, it can go either way. Sometimes a person can be receptive, or sometimes a person can just get in denial, and it can make things worse. You know, the first thing I always recommend to do is whatever you do is just don't enable and try talking. And then there are resources to get help. I think you've got a bunch of resources back there as well. Yeah, there's always, have you ever gone to Al-Anon? No. Al-Anon is a great resource to go to. Try and talk to other people who have been through it as well. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm John. I'm in recovery, and I appreciate your story. And your response just now was awesome. Like, if you see something, say something. Like, you could just ignore it all you want, and you do never know when what hit's going to be your last. But I have been working to strengthen the Al-Anon community around here. And Thursday evenings at 8 o'clock, MMC hosts us. It's at our Grove Street campus, and we'd love for all of you to join us. You know, she had talked about how she found some strength in some mutual aid fellowships, and they say the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel, and it goes the same for family members, and they're worrying themselves to death. And like, really, you are powerless over your loved one's addiction, and you can worry yourself until you have an ulcer. But until they're ready to get clean, as you can see from Alexis's story and pretty much anyone's story, it's not going to happen. But there is always hope for recovery. But yeah, I just wanted to encourage you to check out Al-Anon if you're struggling. That's Thursday at 8. I believe a new noontime meeting started up at the Red Door Church around the Diamond on Tuesdays. So yeah, thanks for your story, Alexis, and I just wanted to remind everybody that Al-Anon is around, and we'd love to see you there.
Thank you. So before I turn it back to Dawn, I really want to say thank you so much. Don't give up hope. Honestly, people can change. You know, they told me I should rot in prison, and here I am, you know, almost 3 years sober, doing my best to try and help others. And I'm so grateful to Meadville. I've gotten nothing but hospitality since I've been here, and to Dawn and to everybody here. And just hold on, okay? Things can get better, and thank you.